I shouldn't have been looking at her that way. Not then, not ever. But there she was, leaning against the kitchen counter, her hair half-tied, a glass of wine resting in her hand as if it had been forgotten mid-sip. The evening light caught the fine lines at the corner of her eyes, and instead of making her older, it only made her more impossible to look away from. She was my best friend's girl, had been for years. And me? I was 20, still stumbling into myself, still learning how to stand in a room without feeling like an intruder. I told myself it was nothing. That it was just the way the room felt, too quiet, too heavy. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound between us, and yet the silence pressed louder than words ever could. "You don't talk much, do you?" she asked finally, her voice carrying that effortless warmth I couldn't seem to resist. I shrugged, shifting in my chair, fingers tightening around the sweating bottle of water I hadn't opened. "Depends who I'm with." Her lips curved, not into a smile exactly, but something softer, like she understood more than I wanted her to. She looked at me then, not past me or through me, but at me, in a way that made my chest tighten. I should have looked away. Instead, I held it too long, until the air between us seemed charged, fragile. I'd known her for months. She was always his girl in every room I entered. But that night, sitting in the dim quiet of their kitchen while he ran late, as he always did, she didn't feel like anyone's but herself. And maybe that was the most dangerous thought of all. Her hair slipped loose from its tie when she leaned down to place her glass on the counter, and I caught myself watching the small motion, the strand brushing against her cheek. She noticed. I knew she did because her fingers hesitated before tucking it back. "You make me nervous," she said suddenly, almost like she hadn't meant to. The words pulled me upright. "Me?" "Yes, you." She let out a small laugh, shaking her head, but it wasn't dismissal. If anything, it sounded like the kind of laugh someone lets out when they've revealed too much. I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to know what she saw in me, a boy with too much quiet, sitting in her kitchen like he didn't belong. But the question tangled in my throat, so I stayed silent, staring down at the bottle in my hand. The clock ticked. A car passed outside. Every sound felt sharper, like the world had narrowed into this room, this moment. "I shouldn't," she started, then stopped. Her hands brushed across the counter, restless, as if searching for an anchor. I swallowed hard, heat rising in my neck. "Shouldn't what?" Her eyes lifted to mine, steady, unflinching, and the weight of it made me forget to breathe. For a second, it felt like she might actually say it, the truth that hovered between us, too raw, too risky. But just as her lips parted, the sharp chime of the doorbell cut through the silence. She froze. I did too. And in that pause, something shifted, something neither of us could undo. The sound of the doorbell broke whatever had been hanging between us. She pulled back first, straightening her blouse as if it mattered, her expression rearranged into something careful, practiced. I stayed frozen, bottle still sweating in my grip. It was him, my best friend. He stepped in with his usual rushed energy, dropping his keys on the counter, kissing her cheek without even noticing she hadn't finished her wine. I watched her face tilt away slightly, just enough to hide it. If he saw, he didn't care. I'd seen this before, the late arrivals, the distracted conversations, the way he left her standing alone in rooms even when she wasn't. He was my friend, had been since we were kids. Loyal, funny, reckless. But when it came to her, it always felt like she was more background than partner. Later, after he crashed in front of the TV, she wandered back into the kitchen. The dim light caught her again, softer this time, shadows under her eyes. I didn't mean to ask, but the words slipped out anyway. "You ever get tired of waiting for him?" Her head snapped toward me. For a second, I thought I'd gone too far. But then she sighed, long and low, and leaned back against the counter. "Every day," she admitted, almost in a whisper. The honesty of it startled me. She didn't owe me that. Maybe that's why it landed heavier than it should have. I wanted to tell her she deserved more, that someone should look at her the way I'd been unable to stop myself from doing. But who was I? 20 years old. No career, no plan. Just his friend who came around too often, pretending the reason wasn't her. Instead, I said nothing. My silence stretched, but she didn't fill it. That felt worse somehow. I was married before him, she said suddenly, tracing the rim of her glass with one finger. 8 years. We tried. But trying doesn't mean much if you're the only one putting in the work. I nodded, throat tight. She didn't need me to answer, only to hear it. And I did, maybe more than she realized. You're too young to get it, she added softly, but her eyes flicked toward me, searching, almost testing. Maybe, I said. But I know what it's like to feel invisible. Her hand stilled on the glass. That was the first time she didn't look away. For a moment, the air felt fragile again, stretched thin by words unsaid. I thought about how wrong this was, that she was his, that I shouldn't be here listening to pieces of her she'd never given him. But I couldn't leave. She reached past me to set her glass in the sink, and as she did, her fingers brushed against mine. It was nothing, a slip, an accident, but neither of us moved right away. The touch lingered, quiet, dangerous. When she finally pulled her hand back, her voice was steady, though her eyes betrayed her. You should go. Before he notices. But I didn't move. And neither did she. I didn't leave. Not right away. Her words, before he notices, hung in the air, but neither of us moved. Her hand, still warm from brushing mine, felt branded into my skin. I should have walked out. Instead, I leaned back against the counter, closer than I should have been. Her eyes flicked toward the living room where he was still half asleep on the couch, TV flickering across his face. Then back to me. A silent warning. You don't make things easy, she whispered, so soft I barely heard. Before I could answer, his voice cut through. Hey, what are you two doing in there? I jumped. She didn't. She slipped past me with practiced ease, her face settling into calm as she carried her glass back into the room. I stayed frozen, trying to breathe, before finally following. He barely looked at us, already distracted by his phone, but for the first time, guilt pressed heavy in my chest. The next few days, I avoided their place. I told myself space would fix it. That if I stopped showing up, the thoughts would fade. But distance only sharpened them. Every time my phone buzzed, I wanted it to be her. Every night, I caught myself replaying that moment in the kitchen, the brush of her hand. It wasn't long before I caved. I shut up one rainy evening, telling myself it was just to hang out with him. But when she opened the door instead, hair damp from the weather, sweater sleeves pushed past her wrists, I knew I was lying. He's not home, she said, hesitant, but she didn't close the door. I nodded, water dripping from my jacket, heart hammering. I can come back. No, she interrupted quickly, then softened. You're already here. Come in. The house felt different without him. Too quiet. Too intimate. She made tea, the kind of small act that felt bigger than it was, and we sat across from each other at the kitchen table. Neither of us touched our cups. I've been thinking, she said finally, her voice low, steady but strained. I leaned forward before I could stop myself. About what? She hesitated, eyes searching mine like she wanted me to fill the silence for her. But I didn't. I couldn't. About us. The words hit hard. She looked away immediately, as if she regretted them the moment they left her mouth. I reached out, instinct more than choice, my hand brushing hers on the table. This time she didn't pull away. The moment stretched, charged, teetering towards something neither of us could take back. I swear I started to lean in, and so did she. Then the front door slammed. We jolted apart, chairs scraping the floor. His voice carried through the hall, casual, careless. "Babe? You here?" Her hands trembled as she pushed away from the table, forcing herself upright. I sat frozen, pulse racing, the taste of almost still burning between us. She glanced back at me once, just once, eyes wide, raw with something unspoken. And in that look, I knew. We were already too far gone. After that night, nothing was the same. We didn't talk about it. Not with words. But everything else said too much, the way she avoided looking at me when he was around, the way my chest tightened every time her voice softened in my direction. He never noticed, not really. He trusted me. That was the cruelest part. One evening, I came over and found them mid-argument. His voice carried down the hallway, sharp, impatient. "You're always on me." "I'm working, I'm doing everything I can, what more do you want?" Her reply was quieter, but it cut deeper. "I want you here." I froze, halfway to the living room, unsure if I should leave. But then the door opened and he stormed out, brushing past me without a glance. "She's all yours," he muttered, bitter, before slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was suffocating. She stood in the doorway, arms folded, but it wasn't anger holding her together, it was exhaustion. "I'm sorry," I said, though I didn't know why. She laughed softly, bitterly. "You always apologize. For things that aren't even yours." I stepped closer. "Then tell me what's mine." Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp, searching. For a moment, I thought she might actually say it. Instead, she shook her head, moving past me into the kitchen. I followed. Couldn't help it. She was leaning against the counter again, shoulders tight. "Do you know what it's like," she said, "to feel like someone sees right through you? Day after day, like you're furniture in your own life?" "Yes," I said before she could go on. My voice broke sharper than I meant. "I know." She looked up, startled. And for the first time, I didn't hold back. "I see you." The words landed between us, heavy, dangerous. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Instead, she turned away, pressing her palms flat against the counter as if it could hold her steady. "You shouldn't say things like that," she whispered. "But it's true." Her shoulders shook once, laughter, or maybe a sob. "You're 20. You don't understand." "Don't I?" My voice rose, the restraint breaking. "You think age is the difference?" "That's not it. He doesn't notice you. He doesn't listen. He leaves you standing in rooms like you don't matter." I can't, my words caught, but I forced them out. "I can't watch that anymore." The kitchen was too quiet after that. She turned slowly, her eyes wet but unflinching, and for the first time she didn't put distance between us. She stepped forward. Just once. Close enough that I could feel her breath. "This can't happen," she said, but it sounded like a plea more than a rule. I leaned in, every nerve screaming, gravity pulling me toward her. "Then stop me." Her lips trembled. She didn't move. And just as the space between us disappeared, the sound of keys rattled at the front door, the keys clattered, the door swung open, and just like that, the moment shattered. We jumped apart, but too late. He walked in, rain dripping from his jacket, phone pressed to his ear. At first, he barely noticed us, still caught up in whatever call he was finishing. But then his gaze shifted, quick, sharp, and lingered too long. On me. On her. Something flickered across his face. Suspicion. I swallowed hard, my pulse pounding in my ears. She stepped back, creating space, her arms crossing her chest like armor. "Everything okay?" he asked, voice deceptively casual. Fine, she said quickly, too quickly. We were just, she faltered, searching for a lie. I tried to steady my voice. I was leaving. But he didn't move aside. He just stood there, eyes darting between us. Then, with a small, humorless laugh, he said, "You think I don't see it?" Her breath caught. Mine too. "What are you talking about?" she asked, but her voice wavered. "I've seen the way you look at each other," he snapped, finally dropping the mask. His eyes pinned me like I was the betrayal itself. My best friend, of all people. The words hit harder than I expected. Because he was my friend. We'd grown up together, shared everything. And now, this. "You're imagining things," she said firmly, stepping between us, but her voice cracked at the edges. He scoffed, shaking his head. "Don't lie to me. Not you. Not him." His gaze cut back to me. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me you don't want her." The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. My mouth went dry. I should have lied. I should have denied everything. But when I looked at her, at the way her shoulders tensed, the way her eyes avoided mine because she already knew what I'd say, I couldn't. "I can't," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Her head snapped toward me, eyes wide, filled with something between fear and relief. His face, though, twisted, betrayal painted in every line. "You little," he stepped forward, fists clenched, but she caught his arm. "Stop it," she cried. "This isn't about him. It's about us." The room went still. Even I froze, stunned by her words. She hadn't meant to say them, I could see it in her face, but once they were out, she didn't take them back. His voice cracked, bitter and raw. "So that's it. I was right." She pressed a hand to her forehead, as if the weight of it all was crushing her. "You were gone long before he came along," she whispered. The silence after that was unbearable. His breathing ragged, her eyes wet, and me caught between them, the truth spilling in every direction. He grabbed his keys again, knuckles white, and for a moment I thought he'd throw them across the room. Instead, he shoved them in his pocket and turned toward the door. "Both of you, stay the hell away from me," he said, voice hollow, before slamming the door behind him. The house shook with the echo. She sank into the nearest chair, trembling, her face in her hands. I stood there, useless, my heart torn between guilt and the undeniable pull toward her. And for the first time, the danger wasn't just in wanting her. It was in the fact that she wanted me too. The silence after he left was heavier than his words. The door still rattled in its frame, but the sound of his anger lingered longer. She sat at the kitchen table, face buried in her hands. I hovered by the counter, too close to her, too far to make it better. My chest ached with guilt, and yet, under all of it, a truth pulsed steady. I didn't regret what I felt. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was muffled, raw. "We ruined him." I shook my head, stepping closer. "No. He ruined this long before us." She lifted her face, eyes red, tears catching in the light. "Don't defend me. Don't defend yourself. You're just a boy who wanted something he shouldn't." That stung, not because it wasn't true, but because she wanted it too. "I'm not just a boy," I said, sharper than I meant. "I see you." Every part he ignored, I've been seeing since the first night you let me stay here. "Don't pretend it's one-sided." Her lips parted, but no denial came. Instead, her shoulders collapsed like she'd been carrying the weight too long. "You think I don't lie awake at night replaying that look in your eyes," she whispered. "You think I don't want to give in?" The air crackled. I stepped forward, closing the distance until I could feel her trembling breath. "Then do," I said. My voice was softer now, not a command but a plea. Her eyes searched mine, not for attraction, but for courage. and for the first time, she let herself be honest. I'm terrified. Of what people will say. Of losing everything. Of you realizing I was just a mistake you made in your 20s. I swallowed hard, leaning closer, my forehead nearly touching hers. The only mistake would be walking away. Her hands clenched on the table, knuckles white. Then, slowly, hesitantly, she lifted one and pressed it against my chest. My heartbeat hammered against her palm. This isn't fair to you, she said. It's not fair to either of us, I whispered back. But it's real. The words broke something in her. Tears slipped down her cheeks, and this time, she didn't turn away. Our lips hovered, breaths mingling, everything trembling on the edge of collapse. Then, with a choked sound, she kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was desperate, clumsy, years of regret colliding with months of longing. Her hands gripped my shirt like she might drown without it, and I held her just as tightly, as if letting go would undo everything. When we finally pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine, both of us gasping. What now? She asked, voice shaking. I didn't have an answer. Not for him. Not for the world outside this house. But I had her. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Morning light has a cruel way of making the night feel less certain. I woke on her couch, the blanket she'd draped over me sliding to the floor as I sat up. The house was too quiet, every sound outside, birds, traffic, life, sharper against the silence we were left with. She was at the table, hair pulled back, coffee untouched in her hands. She hadn't slept. Her eyes lifted when I moved, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. What could we say? I don't know how to undo what happened, she said finally, her voice hoarse. I crossed the room, slowly, as if rushing might break the fragile calm we'd managed to find. Maybe we don't undo it, I answered. Her laugh was soft, almost bitter. You make it sound easy. It's not. I sat across from her, leaning forward, hands clasped. But what's worse? Pretending last night didn't matter, or admitting it did? She studied me for a long time. I could see the fight in her, the part that still belonged to him, to the years they'd built, even if those years had already crumbled. But beneath it, there was something stronger. Longing. The kind that doesn't fade once it's been spoken aloud. He was your best friend, she said, guilt curling around every syllable. I know, I said quietly. And I'll carry that. But he left because he already knew he'd lost you. Not to me, just, in general. I only noticed what he chose not to. Her eyes shimmered, tears she didn't want to shed. She looked away, out the window where the sky was breaking open, pale blue cutting through the gray. Do you regret it? I asked, barely breathing. She turned back, meeting my eyes without flinching this time. No. And that terrifies me. Something inside me loosened then, not relief exactly, but the beginning of it. I reached across the table, palm up. She hesitated, then set her hand in mine, fingers curling tight, like letting go would undo everything we'd fought to admit. We sat like that, silent, tethered by the simplest of things. The world outside would catch up. People would talk. He would never forgive me. Maybe she would wake one day and wonder if choosing me had been reckless. But in that moment, it didn't matter. For once, we weren't hiding. She squeezed my hand, a small, deliberate act that said more than words could. Whatever came next, pain, fallout, even love, we'd face it together. And for the first time, the thought didn't scare me. It steadied me. Because she wasn't just my best friend's girl anymore. She was mine. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?